Hello, my friends. D.L. Anderson here. Welcome back to Transformation by Truth podcast as we share the truth concerning these last days and what you must do to save yourself from the violent times that are just ahead. Today's podcast is a word of truth accounting of the end times. The end is coming. The end is near. Today's podcast is entitled End Times 390, The Importance of Reigning Over Disobedience. How reigning over disobedience is the key to reigning over doubt. The podcast objectives are: reveal the primary success factor of obedience and faith, revisit the importance of reigning over lawlessness, and reveal the key to defeating all the degrees of lawlessness. This lesson contains timelines and other visuals. Therefore, if you are listening to the podcast, I advise you to watch the video version on our website or YouTube, or request a PDF of the lesson so you can add the visual effect. How to walk in obedient faith. Shalom, my beloved brothers and sisters, and welcome to day 171 of our exposition of lawlessness. In the most recent podcast, we analyzed how transformation, i.e., the critical degree of obedience, defeats complacency, i.e., the critical degree of disobedience. In doing so, I have now shown you how obedience defeats disobedience at the detailed level. To wit, I have shown you how compliance defeats non-compliance, how conformance defeats non-conformance, and how transformation defeats complacency. Not only this, but I have shown you how all the derivatives of disobedience are eliminated from your thought dimension. And thus, the war between obedience and disobedience you have fought for many days will finally be over. You, my friend, have gained the victory. For that reason, we should consider all we have learned about obedience. By definition, obedience is complete submission to the Father's will, which causes us to follow him, regardless of the conditions surrounding the command. And the primary objective of obedience is to follow the Father's will wherever it leads you, regardless of the outcome. Now, for those who are still working to obtain the victory over disobedience, walking in obedience may seem like the ultimate challenge, especially when you consider how it requires us to follow the Father's will in every situation, regardless of the conditions surrounding the command. Here lies the inflection and the great complexity of obedience. It is also the reason why many of us follow the disastrous model of King Saul, a man who claimed he obeyed the voice of Elohim while he stood in the midst of ample evidence which proved he had not obeyed. Consider this, my friends, and be advised. The most critical factor of obedience is immediacy. To wit, the moment you hesitate at any command, you begin turning your attention toward the path of disobedience. And in the sure course of time, you will begin preparing yourself to follow it. Now, as perilous as this scenario is, it is crucial for you to understand how men and women come to this place of pending disaster. Vis-a-vis, it is because they struggle with some condition concerning the command. My dear friends, hear me carefully as I say, it is irreligious for any of us to hesitate at any of the Father's commands. For we are men and women and not Elohim. And thus, what place do we, as men, to hesitate at the command of Elohim? Do you suppose you have the requisite levels of wisdom, righteousness, and power to go along with your immortal nature to challenge the mind of Elohim? Do you have a seat at his table to deliberate with him concerning how he should fashion his will for your life? Forgive me for being facetious, but this is the level of sacrilege that many men and women engage in every day. This is the blasphemy we engage in when we hesitate at the command of Elohim because we are unwilling to follow the conditions he has established. Now, what many don't realize concerning this matter is sure, and I will offer it as an inflection point. It is a key matter we all know and some appreciate, and it is crucial to master if you are to reign over disobedience. Every facet of the Father's will is designed to keep you in the way of holiness and to empower you to overcome every obstacle and enemy you will encounter on your path. Here again, the reason why we often fail to appreciate this matter is because we are not Elohim, and we will never be. Therefore, we will not always understand the totality of his will. This is our reality. This is why you must appreciate the linear model of holiness explicitly where we are at in this quest. To wit, we have just unlocked the powers of obedience and faith. And thus, you must appreciate the following inflection point. As it pertains to obedience and faith, success is not established upon how well you understand the Father's will. Quite the contrary, success is established upon your willingness to follow his will, specifically when you don't understand it. Back where you started. Now, as simple as this matter is, many will fail for the simple yet dangerous fact that they think they can negotiate the conditions of their compliance with Elohim. What foolishness! If these individuals understood even the most basic precepts of compliance, they would understand how there can be no negotiations concerning the conditions of the Father's will. Listen to me. Such a debased scenario is not even workable. It's not even possible. For to negotiate one's compliance would eliminate the spiritual substance of compliance due to the fixed factor of authority, which cannot be negotiated. Ergo, the one who is looking to negotiate is by default not looking to comply. Now, let me tell you something. Those who operate with this irreligious state of mind are not only going to lose their war with disobedience, brothers and sisters, this seditious maneuvering is evidence they never won their war with doubt. We know this because anyone who questions Elohim at this juncture does not have complete confidence in him. Ergo, they are not walking in trust. Ergo, they will not obey him in every situation. Ergo, they will not stay in the way of holiness. Now, I hope you are seeing the grave danger in this scenario. Explicitly, the fact that this is the primary reason why many will never reign over disobedience. And if they fail to reign over disobedience, they will also fail to reign over doubt. We know this because doubt and disobedience are complementary degrees of lawlessness. Vis-a-vis, they are a singular force of darkness, a unified adversary. As you have learned, doubt is the invading army, and disobedience is the enemy nation, i.e., the fatherland. Here lies the inflection and the problem. Vis-a-vis, if you defeat an invading army but fail to defeat the enemy nation, that enemy nation will eventually send another invading army. Here lies the danger and the inflection. Consider this. If you fail to defeat the invading army and the enemy nation in accordance with the time factor of the Father's will, the ensuing invasion will be 7 times greater than the first. My dear friends, this is the primary reason why so many struggle in their conquest of disobedience and doubt. It's why they show signs of faith and obedience on the one hand, and on the other, they are unfaithful and unwilling to obey. It's because they attained some key victories, but they never translated those victories into a reign. And as it pertains to the degrees of lawlessness, it doesn't matter how many victories you gain, for you will find yourself back where you started if you fail to establish your reign. The key to defeating every degree of lawlessness. Now, due to the lateness of the hour we are living in, time is of the essence, always of the essence, and we don't have time to waste. Therefore, we must never lose sight of the big picture. We must keep our focus on the ultimate goal. To it, we must finish the job we started when we defeated the invading army of doubt. Vis-a-vis, we must now defeat the enemy nation. We must now conquer the fatherland. In doing so, we are not only establishing our reign over disobedience, my dear friends, we are strengthening our reign over doubt. Not only this, but we are unlocking the spiritual blueprint for reigning over the remaining degrees of lawlessness. Brothers and sisters, hear me carefully as I say, this is huge. You must believe me. There is more at stake in your war with disobedience than there is in any other war you fight with any of the other degrees of lawlessness. And this is the first war you fight in your quest. Now, I'm not saying this to decrease the urgency of future battles. Quite the contrary. I'm only saying this to ensure that you pay the more earnest heed in your most critical battles with lawlessness because so much is at stake. Trust me, it's common knowledge that how you begin any enterprise will be a key factor in how you finish. And this is certainly the case for your wars with the 80 degrees of lawlessness. It is also why the Spirit has led me to invest a great deal of time analyzing disobedience and doubt. It's because your victory over these degrees is the key to defeating every other degree of lawlessness. This, my friends, is where it all begins. And so we will shift our focus to showing you how you can establish reign over disobedience. Now that you have unlocked all the powers of obedience. And seeing as there is so much at stake, I would encourage you to share these podcasts as you are led. You must believe me. Anyone who does not establish reign over disobedience and doubt will never obtain the seal of Elohim. It will never be so. Ergo, if you or anyone you know truly desires to be sealed so that they are guarded during the great distress, these are matters they must surely know. Now, here is the final word. We must not waste a single minute nor lose sight on how we must finish. Brothers and sisters, this is one of the most important lessons you will learn in this series. To wit, if you fail to establish reign over disobedience, you will get nowhere in your quest. You can look at all the degrees of holiness and try to convince yourself that you are operating at a level of mastery in all the degrees following obedience. But you are only deceiving yourself, for you are not walking in the truth. And so we are all in the same boat. There are no shortcuts on this path, and we are fools if we try. For there are no negotiations concerning this way. We can take it and live, or we can leave it and die. And so I recommend that you take it and live with me and those who are committed to winning each battle and fighting the good fight every day. And don't be discouraged by the faithful few who are with us. For when the angels of death come to remove the transgressors and those doing lawlessness from the earth, we, my friends, will stay. Amen. Now, here is today's assignment. Meditate on the word you have heard today. And as always, ask the Father to reveal the truth to you. For the children of Elohim live by conviction. And if he has not convicted you, or if you had not heard him concerning these matters, you should pray until you do. Today, I want you to meditate on the word I share and reflect on where you are in your war with disobedience. Vis-a-vis, ask yourself the following question. Am I obedient in all things concerning the Father's will? If you are, that's great. You've passed the first test. From now, you need to position yourself to always be obedient in all things. And that will be the topic of the next series of podcasts, to wit, maintaining your reign over disobedience. On the other hand, if you are not obedient in all things, I encourage you to pray and seek the Father that he, by his Spirit, will help you understand what is keeping you from achieving this major milestone in your spiritual life. And don't stop praying until you get an answer. And if you need any help at all, reach out to a qualified spiritual leader or advisor and let them know your need. Let them know what you're dealing with and let them help you transform yourself into the man or woman Yahuwah made you to be. Now, here is what's next. We completed today's podcast, End Times 390, the importance of reigning over disobedience. And the next podcast is entitled End Times 391, Reigning Over Disobedience and Doubt, Part 1. I will post this podcast on Friday, December 20th, 2024. Until then, my friends, Continue to be led by the Spirit of Elohim. Continue to watch. Continue to pray. Continue in fasting. And most of all, continue to be focused, for the end is coming. The end is near.